Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship here with another video. So I have a confession. Just about 10 to 15 minutes ago, I recorded myself paying off $829,000 of debt under 10 years in a payoff simulation as a doctor. So I literally just pretended I was a doctor. Now I know that in certain contexts that's illegal, like you can't practice medicine and not have a medical license, but I did it in a different context where I paid off debt as a doctor. Okay, I pretended I was a doctor paying off debt. Now, the reason I'm recreating this video again is because I'm just curious what doctors think. I'm just going to keep creating videos about doctors and debt payoff. I've had other people in other prestigious professions like law, accounting, what else? Federal government work. Tell me, email me, say how much they love the content. But I haven't had a doctor yet, so I want to see if they see this content and think, hey, is this good or not? Like, is this, do you think I'm blowing smoke up your a hole when I talk about debt payoff, or is this not even impressive? Right? To some people, this may not even be impressive. So that's what we're going to do today. Keep paying off debt, and then we're just going to kind of do this simulation of debt payoff. So let's go ahead and restart and start from the very beginning using what we call the velocity method. We used to call it velocity banking, but the state government of Illinois kind of said, no, you can't use that word. And actually, you know what? I saw a video on my feed of someone who's really against it, who used to promote it. You know what I mean? Actually, let me just quickly pull out that video. Yeah, it was this one. They're lying to you about this. Came out 8 hours ago. Lawsuit. Oh my goodness. Folks, we can't use that word anymore, even though I actually like it. Oh well. Anyways, so I'll just call it the velocity method, and then we'll just keep paying off debt. Oh man, using whatever this method is called. What did I want to call it, or what did someone suggest I call it? Velocity debt cannonball method, or maybe I was just making a joke about that. But yeah, we'll just call it the velocity method. Okay, so here's the thing. Let's say you make 12, you're a doctor. I'm assuming that there's going to be one doctor eventually, if I spam enough videos on the YouTube algorithm, who's eventually going to watch this content, that you're a doctor, you make about 12 grand a month after tax. You have 13 grand in expenses, and you have negative $477 left over, right? It's because you have all this debt. Look at all this debt. Oh my goodness, 10 credit cards, right? You have a modest auto loan, and this is probably a Toyota. You know what I mean? Like $22,000 auto loan, that's probably Toyota. Do doctors drive Toyotas? I don't know. This is why I need your input. I need the input of the market. Okay, I don't know. And then a student loan of $220,000, and then a mortgage at $430,000 at 4%. Okay, so um, with all this debt, and on top of the debt, we have our personal expenses, which is not tied to debt, $3,000 a month. Um, do we need to make more money to get out of this hole? Right? So this is negative $477.40. So, most people, when they look at this, well, yeah, of course you need to make more money. Income is I'm sorry, I can't even think right now, but let me say this. Income more than expenses, therefore you need to make more money, right? That's the average doctor's way of thinking. Now, this is only true if you have no debt, okay? But I'm assuming that most doctors have debt, right? And so what we need to do is we need to be intentional, okay? So the difference between the left side and the right side, I'll tell you what it is really about being intentional about one thing. Okay? One thing. You know what that one thing is? Saving money. Or rather, not saving money. So the difference between this side and this side is that in this side, you are unintentionally not saving money. And so when you see the negative $477, you're freaking out because this is bigger than this. Whereas here, we're very deliberate, extremely deliberate in not having any money in our checking and savings, right? So if we were positive here, so let's say we were 14 grand in income here and we had $836 left over, we would still want it to go to zero, whether we're negative or positive, okay? And then what we're going to do is increase this cash flow number. So the way that average, I don't want to say average people, but I can't think of anything right now. But I'll just say average people. The way that average people think about cash flow is the dollar amount left over in your checking account after all your bills, including your debts, are paid. So if you ever studied real estate investing, there's like two concepts. There's net operating income and there's cash flow. Net operating income is like all of your income minus expenses, and then cash flow is income minus expenses minus debts, right? So that's really the difference. But here, the way that we're not thinking about like this, right? We're not thinking about money left over. We're just going to put all of our money into debt in the form of something called a line of credit, right? So why a line of credit? Because you can dump all your money in and take it out, and then increase your cash flow. You strategically move debt into a line of credit, right? And we don't have to change this income number. We don't have to change this income number. In fact, what we're going to do is we're assuming that we have a $200,000 line of credit, right? So with the line of credit, you can use the money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. There's home equity lines of credit. There's personal lines of credit. There's business lines of credit. And so what we're going to do is we are going to categorize our debt using something called the cash flow index. So you have this debt divided by the monthly payment, and then it gives you a ranking. Okay, it gives you a ranking system. All right, from smallest to largest, right? And we don't want to pay the large ones off first, right? Because in order for me to pay off this mortgage, $430,000 mortgage, I only get $2,000 of cash flow. So why don't I focus on this credit card and this credit card, which is about more than it's only $65,000 of debt, but it's more than the cash flow of the mortgage. Okay? That's why we pay off this big number last, and then we pay this small numbers first, right? And obviously, when you have a credit card, a very high interest rate, it's going to have a very low cash flow index number. So there's like a direct correlation there. But when it comes to amortized loans, it's a very indirect correlation, right? So you could have a high interest rate, long term, right? Because there's only three factors that control the payment of a loan compared to the balance, which is the balance, the original balance, the interest rate, and the term. And the longer the term, the more interest you pay, but it's the lower the payment amount, right? So long-term loans are very tricky. Okay, so let me go ahead and do this right here. So what we're going to do, and actually let me restart this because I gotta wipe it out from the previous demonstration, is that we're going to move these low cash flow index numbers into a line of credit, right? So there's 10 credit cards, and I've summed them up. I'll sum them up one more time: 5, 8, 15, 20, 27, 30, 37, 10, 35, 12, 15. And then I'm going to sum it up. Then that's $164,000 of credit card debt. $164,000 of credit card debt. Okay, so let's see what happens when we move this $164,000 of credit card debt into a free and clear line of credit. Okay, I'm going to do that. And then guess what happens here? Okay, oh my goodness, these 10 credit cards go to zero, and we literally went from negative $477.40 to $4,683.31 without making a single penny more, right? So without making a single penny more, because all we did was redirect some debts and did some magic and whatever it is. And we literally went from here to here to here. Okay, and here's the chicken and egg scenario that you're going to deal with credit. Okay, here's the scenario that you're going to deal with. Um, a lot of times when people see this, they get really excited because even though they're at negative $477.40, they think they can go to a bank and get a free and clear line of credit. Now, I don't know what banks think of physicians, but banks really like to target physicians, right? I'm like at a federal credit union. They have physician loans, and they said, listen, 100% financing up to $1 million in loans, no PMI, right? Like that doesn't is not given to the average person, okay? Up to $1 million. No, we'll give you the whole loan. No down payment required. I'm like, oh, geez, and receive a gift card up to $500. Is this a joke? You know what I mean? Like, we'll give you a $1 million loan, but you'll get a five. Oh man. Anyways, back to my point. For most people, and I don't know about doctors because obviously I'm not in the underwriter's office, but if you're here and you have a ton of debt, okay, you have a ton of debt and you're in the negative, will the bank give you a free and clear line of credit? The answer to that is no, okay? And the reason is that banks don't lend money to people who need it. Because people who need money, the bank knows are bad people who won't pay them back. Why do you think they never make web pages or marketing materials about loans for people who have no money? Or at least the bank. I don't know about like payday loans and all that, but the bank will never make a web page saying loans for people with no money because they do not lend money to people who need it. They don't. Okay, so we got we have to remember that. I don't even know I'm laughing. All right, you know what? I actually want to react to this video. I've watched like 10 minutes of it. I kind of know what he's gonna say. And to be honest, I think a lot of people in the space kind of teach it wrong. Whatever this used to be called, we'll call it Voldemort. Like they teach Voldemort wrong because what they say is that a line of credit with a higher interest rate will always beat a lower interest rate loan. And you will never hear me say this on this channel. You'll never. You know what you'll hear me say? The best credit decision is not the best financial decision. And you know what's crazy? I learned this from Renatus. So I know he's talking bad about Renatus because that's like the icon. But I'll do a reaction to this video a little bit later. Members only. So 99 cents. I'm really greedy. All right. So anyways, so let's go here. And what's the final step of this not saving money 2.0 technique? Well, you put your entire paycheck into the line of credit, take your expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. Right? That's it. And so after every single month, the balance of your line of credit would go down about 4,000 and some change, and we just kind of keep doing that. So let's go ahead and do this. G2 plus H2 minus, let's go 4683.31, and then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Multiply by the interest rate, and then multiply, yeah, 0.08, and then divide by 12 because the interest rate is quoted annually, and then we're just going to quote it, I'm sorry, we got to calculate monthly, okay? And then so let's see how long it takes us to pay this sucker off. So that's going to be about 40 months, right? So it's not bad considering you start at negative $400. You know what I mean? Think about how much a line of credit would have saved you if you were at this negative $477 because you had all this debt, but the bank's not going to give it to you because banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? So let's go ahead and do this. So milestone, it's going to be 164K, and then what else? How many months? So this is about 40 months. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. And then we have the auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage. And so now what we do is, oh geez. Oh no, I gotta redo the formula. Give me one moment. All right, I found the formula. So let me go ahead and copy and paste, right? And then I'm gonna do this, and we're at month 40. Okay, so we'll follow the same cash flow index model. We just moved the 7 grand into the line of credit, and you know what? We just paid off, right? So we just kind of keep going here, and then I'm gonna do this, and then we see that plus 7702.44, and then it gets paid off in about 2 months. And even if we increase the cash flow by about $400, like let's take a look at this. Okay, it's not gonna make that much of a difference, but look at this. Our cash flow is over 5 grand. OMG. Okay. All right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. And this is going to be 5078.62. And then copy and paste. Oopsie. Did I screw up? Yeah, I think I did. Okay. So now we see that in 42 months, this was just paid off, right? So 42 months. It was paid off, and I'm going to do this and go ahead and be 164 plus 22, so that's going to be 186K. And then it's going to be 40 plus 22, no, 140. I'm sorry, where are we at? 42 months. You know what's funny? It's like when you pay off your big kahuna loan or line of credit, and then you have a car loan, it's like, oh, just 2 more months till the car's gone. It's pretty sweet. And then the student loan and the mortgage. So now that's the ones, those are the really big kahuna loans. And so it'll be 42 months. So I do 42, 42. And then now this is where we got to be careful. And this is probably where the hate comes from, right? You will never ever hear me say in like any of these videos about how this is just exclusively for your mortgage. I would consider this to be a more holistic concept because the problem with most people is they just don't have one loan. They don't have like a mortgage and that's it. Like if all you had was a mortgage and you can have, let's say, throw extra payments in the mortgage. Just say do this. You don't even need line of credit. Dude, that's ridiculous, right? So let me go here. So now we have $159,000 in the loan. Okay, $159,000 at 7%. Now, do you want to move a 7% loan into an 8% line of credit? Probably not, right? Like, we have a 3% loan, we moved to a line of credit. And the reason why we did that is because we have so much cash flow, we have a low cash flow index, it's barely going to make a difference. We pay it off, right? So, if you have a very high cash flow index number, okay, and we'll just say above 50, right? And a very low interest rate, you're actually going to pay up more than you should, right? So this is why I say like, you don't always move a loan into a line of credit, but the line of credit is there to help you so that you can dump all your money into one place without like breaking a sweat. Okay? There's a reason why nobody overpays loans or even credit cards. So even though a credit card is technically a line of credit, if you dump all your money into a credit card, you can't use credit card 1 to pay credit card 2 or credit card 3 or a student loan with the credit card 1, right? There's a reason why we say the tool is out there. Don't put a square peg in a round hole, right? And that's what people try to do with just using only credit cards and not trying to look for a bank that will give them, let's say, a line of credit. And in this country, there's over 4,000 banks, 4,000 banks, and in Canada, they only like five. Okay, they only had they. I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, "What? Like Canada's like huge? Why do they only have five banks or six or whatever?" But that's literally the situation with Canada. Okay. So, anyways, all right. So it's 159 grand balance. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a little bit lazy today. I typically wouldn't do this in real life, right? But I want to make the demonstration quick and easy because I've ranted and gone off too many tangents. But if because the interest rate is similar, I'm okay to moving it. Even though we'll probably overpay a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and do this. All right. So I'm gonna be plus 159,705.84. Okay. Now our cash flow has increased by about 2,500. So we take that into account into our cash flow, and now our cash flow is about 7 grand. Okay. So let's see how long it takes to pay off this student loan, the 7% loan that we moved into an 8% line of credit. So minus 7633, 7633, and then we're going to go ahead and copy and paste, and then we see that in 65 months we've paid off that student loan. So 65 months, so it'd be at 186 plus 220, so it's going to be 406k. Okay, so now 65 months, 406k. Now what's our right here, 65 current balance is 385. Now last time I actually didn't do it this way, so this is going to be different from what I had originally. Oh look, we paid it off a little bit more. Did it take a little bit longer? Okay, well it took a little bit longer. But anyways, all right. So now the balance is 385,000. So what we do is we're going to do something called chunking. So we have two options at this point. Number one is extra payments, right? So, people say extra payments is superior, and my answer to that is if you can do it, go ahead and do it, right? It's go ahead and do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the problem is with extra payments is that when you extra pay, just like extra paying a credit card, it introduces friction, right? It introduces friction in the movement of your money. And I know this is the last loan left, so it's not going to be a big deal. And plus, you have all these 10 credit cards and the huge, line of credit available. But what I'm saying is this, right? The whole point of this was to make debt payoff so easy that all you do is just put money into one place. And I kind of agree with Dave Ramsey when he says that the reason he recommends the snowball method over, let's say, the avalanche method is you'll actually do it. right? Because psychologically, I'm going to tell you the difference psychologically between extra payments and what we're going to do called sweeping or chunking or whatever, just moving the loans into the line of credit, just in piecemeal wise, is that all you have to think about is your checking account going to zero and the line of credit going to zero. And even if your line of credit is at 8, 15, 30%, it'll still work. Although it won't work optimally compared to having the lowest interest rate possible. But what I'm saying is that convenience, it might be worth it just to pay a little bit extra. And the best credit decision is not the best financial decision. But you know what's the best thing ever? The plan that you're actually going to do or actually going to execute. And a lot of times people know this is default option, they never execute on it, right? But what I always like to show is like, hey, even if you have a 4% loan and you're dealing with the 8% line of credit, okay, like no biggie. You know what I mean? Like, oh, 3.6 years, 30 grand of interest, right? And even if we double this, so this is the crazy thing that I didn't even know, 15%, you only pay 2 grand more. Say what? Yeah, so here's the thing. There's a huge difference between moving an entire loan into a line versus just paying it off in piecemeal chunks. Okay? Because interest is not just only about the interest rate, right? It's also about time and volume. So for example, if I go ahead and copy this to here, you see how I paid 155 grand in interest, whereas when I pay in piecemeal chunks, it's 32 grand. Okay. Now here's the thing: even if I do a 30% credit card, it's just 5 grand more, and I could probably offset that with like credit card points or whatever. Okay. But I'm saying if we use a 30% credit card, yeah, we'll end up paying a little bit more, right? Maybe we have bad credit. Maybe we want to give the bank a little bit of interest so that they extend us better terms in the future, right? So again, not everything is just black and white, and that's what I'm trying to like, talk about is that if you want to save the most amount of money, do you know what you would absolutely do? You want to say what you would absolutely do? You would never borrow money ever. Because even getting a loan has its own origination costs for the most part, right? Like, especially in investment property, because they need to make money off of you, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to pay, use the tools that the bank allows you to have, and then, pay it off in the easiest way possible. Anyways, all right. So now what we're going to do is I'm just go back to 8% here, 30 grand. But let me show you this. If I did a 30% line of credit, okay, I moved the whole loan into a 30% line of credit, I would never pay it off. Isn't that crazy? Like, I would never pay it off. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and do this. And then, so this is going to be 13 grand. So it's 3.7 years. So my whole point of this is that you don't have to be afraid of higher interest rate lines of credit to help pay off a loan. That's my point, right? Unless you screw this up completely and move the whole loan into a line of credit. All right, well, that's it for today, folks. So that was 3.6 years. So let's see how long it took to pay it off. So this is 0. And then this is going to be 65 divided by 12 plus 3.6. So that's going to be 9.02 years. And then we're debt free. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today. I'll probably crank out a few more videos. Let's see if I can catch a doctor with the YouTube algorithm and finally have someone who's a medical professional comment and see if I'm blowing smoke up their ASS. Okay. By the way, if you want to let me know you've watched to the end of this video, just type in the comments below. #1 debt payoff channel. I'm self-declared. Self-declared #1. All right. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.